IICRC Water Restoration Course Exam Questions. Swelling, staining, color transfer, delamination of surface finish material. In structures where the surface on the wall is covered with a non-permeable surface, it may be necessary to remove base molding, drill holes, and introduce air movement. What is the standard care for water restoration professionals developed by the restoration industry entitled IICRC S500? When water intrusion results from a grossly unsanitary source or carries pathogenic disease-causing agents, it is said to be Category 3. Evaporation. If the rate of evaporation is allowed to exceed the rate of dehumidification. Typical causes of carpet delamination are folding or stretching carpet when wet, overly aggressive extraction, improper specified underlay, improper installation, improper removal of taxes, trip, improper floating of carpet, excessive wear, pet damage, removed and replaced. Plasticity. Plastic laminate flooring is made of. What is the most critical course of action in restorative drying? To respond quickly. Special situations. Third-party experts are commonly referred to as indoor environmental professionals or IEPs. Water intrusion results in a specialty drying situation. Water has saturated deeply into the materials and is held as bound. Water commonly includes hardwood, plaster, brick, deeply saturated concrete, deeply saturated ground soil, and stone. Dehumidification. Cleaning procedures must be employed before the drying of a Category 2 water loss can continue at minimum. Affected underlay must be removed and disposed of, and the carpet must be thoroughly cleaned using a hot water extraction method. Various cleaning and decontamination procedures must be used on Category 3 water losses, including the removal of all frozen or dried as quickly as possible. When the air temperature increases, it can hold MDF and has a resin-saturated appearance. Layer normally removed in water restoration due to its construction and installation components. When ceilings are affected, drying procedures are similar to wall drying. If the ceiling is sagging or otherwise damaged, wet drywall is drained, removed, and discarded. Most antimicrobials require that the area of application be vacated by occupants and pants during application and for a period of time after application. After physically removing excess water, the time required to dry wet materials is influenced most by the rate of evaporation. Condensation. Because of this fact, they are more efficient in higher humidity conditions. Refrigerant dehumidifiers work best between 70 degrees and 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Air filtration devices are needed in water restoration work whenever high levels. When carpet delamination, the loss of integrity in the adhesives used to laminate the primary and secondary backing has occurred. Further damage is very likely. For this reason, when extensive carpet delamination is discovered, ignitions must call it to the attention of all materially interested parties. Document the condition and replacement. Each gallon of water weighs 8.34 pounds. As a minimum medical requirement, technicians performing water damage restoration services need medical consultation with their primary health care physician for appropriate immunizations. What are the most effective methods of drying wet wood under hard surfaces? Is heated airflow. The ultimate goal is to find the edge of water migration, which moves in a three-dimensional path through the structure. This is accomplished across carpeted surfaces using a moisture sensor and across most hard surfaces using a moisture meter. Non-penetrating moisture meter. Respiratory protection regulations state that the employer must provide medical evaluations, fit testing, and training. Water vapor pressure is the force that drives higher concentrations of humidity from one space to another in an attempt to seek equilibrium with a lower concentrations of water vapor. The ability for water vapor to diffuse through a solid material is expressed as the materials. Worker and occupant health and safety are the first priority on every sewage loss. Areas affected by Category 3 water intrusion are marked and posted as potentially hazardous. When resistance is encountered and performing proper services in a Category 3 water loss becomes a challenge. Restores. Whenever a carpet must be disengaged from the topless strip A, knee kicker and carpet all must be used. Water that has a significant degree of chemical, biological and/or physical contamination is Category 2. Because of their non-invasive nature and quick surveying capabilities, non-invasive meters are the most effective tools for locating abnormal moisture behind and beneath finishing materials such ceramic tile and vinyl floor coverings. Partial floating of the carpet can be a way to achieve drying of all surfaces simultaneously, keeps ambient or warm dry air in contact with wet flooring. Class 1. Cupping will generally be the first indication of abnormal moisture levels in hardwood flooring, as the bottom and sides of the board absorb moisture. Cupping in hardwood is not permanent damage and should be dried in most cases. The numerical value from a moisture meter can be documented and used to monitor progress. For this reason, the amount of moisture absorbed by semi-power structural materials is measured most accurately with a moisture meter, not a moisture sensor. Federal regulations apply to the handling of lead-based paint and asbestos. LGR will continue to remove significant water vapor down 34 GPP. Because desiccant dehumidifiers do not use condensation to remove water, they are not limited by the low dew point temperatures, therefore they produce the lowest vapor pressure of any dehumidifier. A thermohygrometer is used to monitor any air that can influence the temperature and humidity within a restorative drying environment. Turn the drying process. Gyprock's original strength is restored. In fact, it will normally be slightly stronger than before wetting. Specific types of secondary damage associated with contents are typically directly related to each other. Is open drying? Is heat ermine appropriate? The following options, while keeping building security in mind, are available to the restore. Airflow in the wall cavity increases the rate of evaporation and allows the wall to dry from both inside and out. Remove the vinyl flooring and discard it, as underlayment is saturated and/or damaged. Vinyl is a vapor barrier and time required to dry underlayment will be dramatically reduced if the vinyl is removed. Every cubic foot of standing water present in a structure contains 7.48 gallons. To help protect technicians from the many hazards associated with contaminated water losses, restores need to have ready access to several items. These items protect for all potential exposures to the body. Ventilation fans, open windows, air movers. What is combination drying? How many gallons of water are present in a basement that measures 30x25 where water is standing at a depth of 6 feet 9 in? 37,867.5. What materials are warm? Dryer air is used. Air is moved rapidly across a wet surface. If a material is not drying well, what would be the most effective method of increasing evaporation? If surfaces are cooler than the dew point of the surrounding air, water will condense on those surfaces and possibly cause secondary damage. If surfaces are warmer than the dew point of the surrounding air, evaporation can occur. What is vapor pressure? Intrusions involve only a part of an area or involve a larger area that is only being lately affected. Class 2. What is the dew point? The temperature at which air becomes saturated with moisture vapor or can hold no more water vapor. What is GPP called? The humidity ratio. The best way to prevent odors and retard microbial growth in a wet structure is to ensure that all materials are dried thoroughly and rapidly. As mold grows, it can produce a toxic chemical substance. All mold-rated toxins are referred to as. Evaporation may occur. Equilibrium. Permeance. Drying systems. After safety concerns have been addressed and the initial water source has been stopped, the restorer must complete an evaluation of the water's migration through the structure. During this process, to restore inspects all potentially affected areas. The contract clearly states the agreement between the building owner and the restoration contractor. The form specifies who is responsible for payment and the terms of payment, and should be signed before work begins. As moisture evaporates from a wet material, the surface of the material becomes cooler because energy is released from the material. Open, closed, and combo. Plywood represents the wood material with the least engineering, and that's the most natural fiber bonding. It is resistant to swelling and denomination due to its wood veneer assemblies, which are glued under extreme pressure. Wet particle board would normally be subsurfaces below hardwood are dried to within 2 to 4 percentage points of the hardwood. After wood flooring has been dried to acceptable moisture content, appropriate acclimation time should be allowed before refinishing. Once the next been determined that the floor can be salvaged by in place drying, the first step is to determine a dry standard for the hardwood and subfloor. Equilibrium moisture content. Establishing a dry standard is the best way to set restorative drying goals. A dry standard is established by obtaining a moisture reading using unaffected material. When water intrusion results in water running through wall cavities, inspection access holes are used to ensure that blown in insulation has not compacted and lost it. R value. The force exerted by a liquid or gas on the surrounding environment. The greater the weight of water vapor, the greater the water pressure. Therefore, vapor pressure dew point and humidity ratio are. Porous materials affected by water intrusion. Many building materials will absorb excess water vapor and suffer damage, especially when the air is allowed to remain above. Particulates are being added to the air. Conventional refrigerant dehumidifiers under normal temperatures are effective in reducing high humidity to a normal level, approximately 40% RH or about 55 GPP. The most common safety hazards associated with water-damaged structures results in slips and falls. Hygroscopic materials gain and lose moisture continually in an effort to equalize with the water content in the surrounding air mass. The more hygroscopic the material, the faster it will collect water vapor and the easier it will suffer secondary damage. Pre-existing conditions should be identified, documented, and communicated to all materially interested parties during the initial inspection. What are intrusions involve damage to significant areas of carpet and cushion, includes wet carpet, cushion, and water wicking up chipboard, wallboard. Class 3. If the carpet is to be reinstalled, technician should avoid cutting carpet seams unless it is absolutely necessary. More water vapor. Evaporation will increase when moisture. Documentation of restoration work should include each of the following components: record of moisture content, moisture map, a diagram or sketch indicating the boundaries and moisture levels of the affected area, and record of drying conditions or humidity record. Drying systems merge the benefits of both open and closed drying, the use of available dry air from outside, and control offered by a closed system, and mechanical dehumidification. Elevating the temperature of a material will. There are a number of causes for carpet delamination, many of them related to improper restoration activities, 60% relative humidity, abide by local laws and regulations when disposing extracted water. Wastewater is best disposed of into a sanitary sewer. Stop work immediately and prevent liability. Losses where regulated or hazardous materials have contaminated the structure are considered. The most effective way to speed up the drying process is to remove as much of the water in the liquid state as possible during extraction phase. Poor extraction will significantly slow the drying process. Condensation occurs when a vapor changes to a liquid occurs as energy is removed. Whenever a chemical antimicrobial or biocide is used, restorers must follow the directions explicitly. Reduces the moisture content of the air. A balanced drying system is achieved when the rate of the vacation is greater than or equal to the rate of warm the material. Restorers must use a third-party IEP in situations that involve severe public health issues, high-risk occupants living or working in the structure, or extensive microbial contamination that can affect worker or occupant health. Water from a clean source with no substantial risk of causing sickness or discomfort is said to be Category 1 clean water. There are 3 levels of biocidal activity according to the Environmental Protection Agency. Sanitizer, disinfectant, sterilizer. Sublimation occurs when a solid changes to a vapor without going through a liquid phase. Freeze-drying sublimation is typically used with valuable saturated books and documents. Books and documents saturated with clean water may be restorable if relative humidity is defined as the amount of moisture contained in the air as compared to the maximum amount the air could hold that temperature. Mycotoxins. When the presence of mold is suspected, it is important to communicate with all parties and use appropriate. When air is cooled, its capacity for water is reduced. Eventually, if temperature is cooled enough, the relative humidity will reach 100% or saturation. When this occurs, the air has reached its dew point temperature. Water intrusions involve entire areas of carpet and underlay that are wet together with wet wall structure and insulation, moisture wicking up, or water coming down from above. Class 4. Inspections are more consistent when the overall goals are kept in mind. Monitor daily in most circumstances how wet items are used. The same meters in the same locations each day. Determine if wet items are drying. Determine if affected items are dry or done. Secondary damage can occur. Refrigerant vapors or mist should not be inhaled because is the dry standard. Hardwood and subsurfaces are within 2 to 4 percentage points of normal equilibrium moisture content dry standard. As the water is rapidly evaporated, the vapor water is removed by dehumidification or ventilation. In the restorative drying industry, the weight measurement used to measure water vapor in air is grains per pound of air, abbreviated as GPP. The primary goal of the initial extraction of the affected area is to contain further migration of water within the structure. Increase the vapor pressure associated with the moisture in the material. If the surface temperature of the material is higher than the dew point temperature of the surrounding air,